where are we at overall as far as debt service obligations for this fund, and how much money we're bringing in through the chair?
Mr. McCarthy.
So through the chair, we have years to go. The debt is 25-year debt. We borrowed it over a number of different years, so it will continue. It's a city obligation out through 2051. The DIF likely will expire before that, and it'll just become a simple obligation of the city, but for now it's within this district improvement financing structure. The DIF collects revenues from certain sources. The budgeted items here are related to revenues that under the law become part of the city's general fund and then have to be reappropriated by the city council. So that includes any net real and personal property taxes are collected by the city, part of the general fund, appropriated through the city council. Meals and use taxes are actually collected by the state and then transferred over to the city. Those are accepted into the general fund and therefore part of this. And then permit fees. Permit fees are paid to the city, and then we use this process to appropriate them. There are other revenue streams that go directly into the DIF fund: parking revenues, the team payments, rental payments related to certain properties, advertising in the suite, and the like. But what this budget represents are general fund revenues received by the city and then deposited over in the DIF on an annual basis. As you'll recall, at the end of a fiscal year, so come this fall, we'll report out on the prior fiscal year results, how the budget and the actual collections matched up. For now, we have to make assumptions about building construction speed and revenue growth throughout the course of the year, and then circle back to reconcile that against actuals. And through that DIF process, we create essentially a due to, due from. How much does the DIF owe the city? What does the city owe the DIF based on the year?
And for this coming fiscal year, what do those numbers look like projected?
So through the chair, you'll notice we have in here that we're assuming a $900,000 tax levy contribution into the DIF. So that would be city funds not generated within the district that are being allocated there. That will become part of the due to the city, so that as the DIF revenues continue to grow and begin to exceed the debt service obligations, those monies would get paid back either through reduced city contributions over to the DIF or actually outlays from the DIF back to the city. But that'll be over a number of years as the DIF reserve becomes fully viable and we're confident that it can cover the debt costs over the years.
So is that it's an increase in transfer, right? How much money did we transfer last fiscal year?
Through the chair, last year I think we did about 400,000 of tax levy funding, but this is approximately what we've been recording at the end of the years of kind of the shortfall between budget and actuals. It was 700 and something thousand the first year, about 900,000 the second year. So FY24, FY25. We won't know this year's number until the fall once all accounts have been closed and reconciled. But so this is actually probably kind of par for the course in what we've seen in the last few years. I will mention there are a significant number of projects that are planned or beginning, and so those will both generate permit fees and future tax revenues that ultimately that number should and will come down as the tax receipts continue to grow in that area and offset the city contribution by generating revenue within the DIF itself.
Are we planning, are those projects beginning and coming down the line? Are we anticipate that this fiscal year, and what are those projects?
Mr. McCarthy.
Through the chair, I'll turn it over to the Chief Development Officer, but it is a mix. There are projects that have just been pulling permits. There are projects that are working on foundations right now. There's foundations at the old Table Talk site. The site's being cleared. Foundations are getting ready. There's future residential. We've talked about the hotel within the area. So it's different stages for different projects.
And Mr. Dunn.
Yes, through the chair to the councilor, the most significant and imminent we have right now is the construction of the next phase of the Table Talk redevelopment. So it stretches from like almost Green Street up to Washington Street, where it's 185 units. There's no tax relief package on that, so it'll be full taxation when the tax value gets realized. Also, I think the permit fee calculation will be received soon. It hasn't been received yet because they started with a foundation permit and now they're awaiting the issuance of their full building permit, is over $400,000 just in the building permit fee. And then obviously the new taxes that'll come as the construction progresses. The other one that we're hoping will get under construction this calendar year is the council recently supported GFI Partners, the group that's taking over the second residential site from Madison Properties. There is the tie agreement that was provided to Madison that they're taking over, but it is a pretty, as tie agreements go, it is a pretty modest exemption percentage. I think off the top of my head, it averages about 20%. Which is below average for what we've done on a lot of those agreements. And again, they hope to get under construction this calendar year. It would be next fiscal year, and there'll be a substantial building permit, probably comparable in order of magnitude to the other one because it's about the same amount of units. So we hope to see that getting going this calendar year. We are having some conversations, and as referenced with two of the other hotel projects that are gaining some traction, we're hopeful that those market conditions around hotel occupancy and room rates could lead to some more progress on the timeline related to the proposed hotel across the street. As you all probably know, assessment is also a reflection of value. So there are some projects, the one that comes to mind that probably was not at full taxation this fiscal year, but probably would be coming into FY27 would be the adaptive reuse of the historic section of Table Talk at 153 Green Street. There's plus or minus 50 units there that have been brought online, and he's going to be hopefully pulling a permit and getting the first floor commercial uses going. I think we'll continue to see probably growth in meals taxes in the district, particularly with American Flatbread was brought online at the end of last fiscal year, so we should see that continue to grow. And so those are some of the highlights. There are two other phases, smaller portions of the Table Talk redevelopment. If you can picture the former Smokestack Urban Barbecue, which is now Saloon 139, the Asian restaurant. On either side of that, there's two vacant pieces of land that flank it on either side. Anthony Rossi, who did the adaptive reuse of the historic portion of Table Talk, has been working with another developer, and they have received site plan approval from the planning board on a building for each one of those. They're kind of just taking their time with that because there's a lot of activity in that district, particularly with the construction going on. So I think they're trying to be thoughtful and conscientious to some of the concerns that have been raised around just the volume of construction activity and logistics around construction management, staging of materials and the like before they get going on that. But good to see that they've spent real money on those plans, received planning board approval. So I think we feel good about where the district is headed.
Through the chair, Mr. Chairman, are we anticipating that as a result of a couple of these projects that will be at the tax levy contribution will be reconciled to maybe net zero? Like, what are we saying here, through the chair? Because that's something that's important to the community, something that city administration guaranteed us many years ago when folks that were on the council voted for this venture. Through the chair.
Mr. McGurthy.
So through the chair, yes. Keep in mind that the DIF is a 30-year structure, similar to the debt that's being incurred. Just to touch on the values of some of the projects that Mr. Dunn mentioned. So the Table Talk project of 185 units, that parcel we anticipate, and again, it's predicting the future, but we anticipate it's going from a $6.3 million assessment in FY27 up to a $50 million assessment when at full build, 185 units within the next 3 years. The project at Green Island Boulevard that he mentioned right now is a $763,000 assessment. That one, at full build, could be up as high as $54 million for an assessment. Again, now you'd apply the TIF, you'd apply the tax rate to determine how much is collections. And so, it's kind of looking at, again, the timing of when does it come live, what fiscal year is that value recognized, what fiscal year is the TIF or tie applied. But there's significant growth in value. I think we talked at one point, since the beginning of that project, the tax values within that area have gone, the private tax values have gone from about 10 million, I think, up to $123 million in value. So there's significant growth in valuation in the Canal District, and as these new projects come online, they should not only cover the cost of the diff, but then again start building up the reserve to the point that it would be available to start paying back the city, and at some point potentially even eliminate the diff and allow it to fund itself.
Thank you. So the 900,000 that we're transferring here, we're anticipating that will be reconciled to potentially a net zero through the chair.
Through the chair, that's correct. We
Okay.
track each year monies due back and forth between the two entities, and ultimately we anticipate that would be reconciled.
Thank you.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.